Welcome to Rinkside Rundown, the podcast that puts you right in the heart of women's hockey. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and each week I'm on a mission to showcase the incredible women who are lighting up the ice across the globe. Get ready as I chat with rising stars, seasoned pros, and all the game changers making waves in the world of women's hockey that you won't find anywhere else. So, let's dive into the exciting world of women's hockey and make sure to click that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode. Welcome back to Rinkside Rundown. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and on today's episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by Blake Pryor, the assistant coach for the incredible Etobicoke Dolphins U22 team in the OWHL. Blake, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Chris. Happy to do this. Very well, thank you.
Good. I'm so excited. Excited to dive in, learn a little bit more about you, where things started, where things are at right now, and maybe talk about what is in the future for you. So, as is one of the many traditions on this show, we always start with your origin story. So let's talk about where things started for Blake Pryor, maybe even before the coaching, but certainly let's talk about the coaching. Where did things start for you?
Yeah, hockey started very young for myself, my brother, in our family. Coaching, started probably pretty early, just in terms of knowing that's kind of where I wanted to get into. I started on the ice before 3, skating at 3. My grandfather said, you're going to skate. And that's kind of how it all started. Put me in some, whatever it was back then, whatever Timbits was called back then. They put me in and told my parents that I had my first skate the following Saturday morning at 6 a.m. So, it kind of started real quick and really hasn't stopped, from playing, rep hockey all the way through. Little junior rep sports, kind of from me and my brother all the way through, whether it was baseball or hockey. We were always on the go with some sort of sport, and it kind of hasn't stopped into the adult age and into being a parent now. So we are forever grateful for what the sports have given me, in terms of where I am now and in my professional life and how it shaped me. In terms of how the coaching started, it was really another, coming home from school. My best friend was already coaching, needed an assistant coach on the Whitby midget AA team at the time. And from there, it just kind of grew and blossomed into, my passion and ultimately, other than my personal life with my wife and my kid, it's what I think about, what I do on a daily basis now. And it's been a ride, and looking to see how look to see how it goes in the next 10 15 years here with the little one growing up.
So let's talk about what that transition was like when you first moved from, I'm just going to skate, I'm going to play the game, to then becoming a coach. What was that transition like for you? And how do you think your experiences that you've already had on the ice around the game, how do you think that's also influenced your coaching style?
Even when I was growing up, I always kind of looked to see, I was always overthinking things, in terms of, how could I better myself, or, what was going on the outside, in terms of what the coaches were doing, and in our pre-games, and, in the games, in the game preparation, on ice, in games. So it was always, the DNA always seemed to be in me, to be a coach. I was always a player that understood the game a lot better than I could, probably articulate it at a young age. But I always understood that, you have to be where the puck's going, not where it's been, and things like that. As you're growing up, it's, some of those concepts are harder for certain individuals to gain, and just seeing that, whether it was watching so much or, playing it outside, that it was something that always came to me, that I was able to read the game at a little bit higher, I guess, pace than others. Skating wasn't always easy for me. It was, probably my holdback and my setback. So it was always something that I was working on, while others were probably already done their skating stuff. They were working on, learning the offensive skills and stuff. But learning and looking at hockey at a certain age, or at a younger age, I think it was something that just, it came to me real good and real easy, that I enjoy teaching and passing that on to the kids now. Of, they might be doing something, but I can see something that might have been a better option, and you can try to push them in that direction by asking them questions and different things of that side. And I think seeing it at a different level, when I was younger, has kind of helped me prepare for these kids that are so skilled and so passionate about the game, to help them get that 1%, 10% better each time they're on the ice.
So let's talk about that, like the coaching career as well, because I think that's really important to highlight. When you reflect on, where coaching started for you and where you're at now, talk about that journey. Who were, what were some of those teams that you were a part of, and what were some of those lessons that you learned, personally, about your coaching style throughout that period of time?
Yeah, there was, growing up, I saw a lot of things that I didn't like. When I was being coached, there was a lot of things that, and it was probably growing up during the times that it was a different way of being, of how coaches coached. But there was a lot of things that I didn't like or didn't appreciate. But there was definitely some things that you took away, and probably more so in the terms of how the game was played. That the older coaches understood a couple of different things that maybe I didn't at that time. But now I think back and realize that they were actually right. But in the coaching side of things, the two coaches that come to mind, before Joe, is Gary Soper and Kevin Schramm. I started with Gary. Gary actually coached my brother back in the day. So and when I got into Whitby, for the first couple of years, Gary was the head coach for the midget team, and then we moved up as a coaching staff into the junior team in the PWHL in Whitby for the first couple of years. And honestly, to get your start with a guy such as Gary, and how easy he is to work with. He gives you stuff. He lets you work on it. He was probably one of the best mentors, just in terms of giving you the space for you to figure out what type of coach I wanted to be, and how I could be. But then also looking at him and seeing how long he's done it and how well he's done it, was kind of who I looked at and wanted to follow for the first few years, for sure. Kevin and I actually moved down from the junior team into the Whitby Midget OWHL program for another couple of years as a staff. We were very, very good. A lot of times ranked in top 2 or 3 in Ontario for midget OWHL at that time. Lost some heartbreaking games in semifinals and finals of provincials. And what I learned from Kevin was the way that he treated each and every one of them like his daughter. Showed just how compassionate and passionate he was about the game, and how much he wanted to make them feel that they were able to come to the rink in a safe space. And from there, I kind of using those two gentlemen in particular has kind of made me who I am today as a coach. Obviously still learning from Joe, still learning from other coaches I speak to, and watching and reading other coaches. But for the most part, Gary and Kevin were huge mentors to me, in terms of where I started and now to where I am, still using how they coached, and how disciplined, and how organized they were, and still are, with Gary now coaching the U22 Whitby team. So he's come back full scale back into it. So it's awesome seeing that. But again, it's if it weren't for those two, I probably wouldn't be here still coaching and at the level I am today.
And what do you think, like, when you look back on your coaching career, what was it about women's hockey that kind of drew you to that sport? And throughout this process, I say process, but throughout these experiences that you've had, um, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned about, being around the women's game?
It didn't really click to me before I came home from university. My friend had already coached with Gary the year previous. He'd known Gary through doing some hockey skills, and hockey clinics with Gary for the city of Oshawa. And it never, when I got home, it didn't really, I knew I wanted to coach, but I didn't have a real avenue to know where I wanted to go. And this opportunity came up on the female side because Gary's daughter was going through that team. So he was already coaching that team, and Brad was staying with them. And honestly, it could have been female, it could have been male. I would have jumped at it, no problem. But jumping in at the female side and never really leaving the female game. You start with it. They listen to you so well that they try to, they don't want to make you upset or make you wrong or whatever the case is. But that was the first big thing that I really saw, is that they'll listen to you so much that they'll do it to a T. But it was way better than when I had the experience of at university. I was doing some co-op stuff and coaching a U8 or a U10 boys team, and they were kind of all over the place, Timbits hockey, and not always listening. But it was they'd always at least try, on the female side, they'd at least try what you've asked of them. And maybe it wasn't at the right time that they would do what you asked, but at least they were trying and they were listening and putting that into their game, which has only blossomed to where it is now. And I think where the skill level is now, the coaches still need to they need to continue to get better and continue to do their stuff on the side to stay up with these players and how much they've gained over the last 15 years since I've started.
And when you think about your coaching philosophy, it's one of those things that I'm sure evolves over time. How has that process been to be able to find out, like, this is who I am as a coach. This is what I expect of my players. How has that what is your coaching philosophy? I guess let's start with there. But like, how has that evolved over your time in the coaching ranks?
Yeah, typically, from when you start as an assistant coach, there's probably a lot less things that you need to think of, as opposed to a head coach. And I've had both opportunities that I've done well, and been with really good programs throughout being an assistant coach and being a head coach. So I try to bring the same thing every day, that the athletes, they live such busy lives, and they're expected of so much, from school to hockey, or hockey back to school, or work to whatever they're doing that time. Honestly, if you can bring 100% of what you have that day, if it's 70%, give me all that 70% for that hour and a half. You're going to get better. And if you can do that, there's no reason that I can't come and do that myself as well for you. And if the kid or the player at that time is getting 1% better every time they come to the rink, and whether that's as a player, as a person, because they were able to have a conversation with an adult, they were able to ask something that they might not be comfortable with. That's things that all go into the coaching side of things. That it's not just becoming a better athlete, but becoming a better person for your professional life, where the hockey and all these games and all these sports, they give you so many life lessons that if you don't take them away when you're actually, or understand what you're doing at that time, I think you're doing the player and the young athlete a disservice by not giving them that and giving them that example of I go through this on a daily basis with my boss. But if you can't come and talk to me now at 15, 16, try to get that 1% better by whether it's personal or professional, or as an athlete, each time you're at the rink, we need to rethink what we're doing and how we're doing it for the player and the families.
And I want to know as well, you had mentioned about being obviously both an assistant coach as well as a head coach. When you think about, like, first of all, what is that shift like for you to have to go from being an assistant coach to a head coach, and then joining a new club with being now an assistant coach? And how do you think your time in both of those roles impact the other side of it?
For sure. I struggled making the decision going from assistant coach to head coach with the Whitby when I was with Whitby, Gary, ultimately how it happened was Gary left, Kevin moved on to the junior team, and I stayed back at the midget program for a few years, and we kind of had a nice little string of things where we had kids moving up and down and into the programs and how it should operate. But it was a struggle, to say the least. Moving from you need to be your best every time you come to the rink, for everybody. The assistant coach can kind of hide, or sometimes, at that level, they might hide behind the head coach a few times, or, they might not show up till 10, 15 minutes before the game or practice, because they don't have, they don't have that commitment per se. But as a head coach, being there an hour before each thing, you need to talk. If players want to speak with you, families want to speak with you, setting the practice plans, each and every practice, getting it to your coaching staff, talking to the coaching staff. Whereas moving from the assistant coach to head coach definitely has, it's positives, and now it's your program. You can do what you want with it and how you see fit. But it also has a lot of drawbacks too if you're not ready for it, you're not committed to be that. So ultimately, it was fantastic being head coach. I'll be honest. I wish I was. At times, there's times I wish I was still there. But I think the way that Joe and I have kind of created what we have now. If there's something that I see, or if there's something that I've done, or that he's done, I'm not afraid per se to go say, Joe, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like we can have a conversation, and I think that's why we've been very successful in what we do, is because I may be assistant coach on paper, but I feel that I'm still a head coach in terms of the way that we're able to operate with the both of us. Joe's not afraid to leave the program to go do things like this at the Nationals, or when he took the Poland job, because he knows it's in capable hands, and it's in hands that he knows that he can trust. And I think that's a big factor of where it's come from and where it's gone is, Joe had help before, but now he knows he can rely on people and rely on me to be able to, follow his lead and know that I have his back tenfold on whatever we do and however it goes. But coming to Etobicoke I was very hesitant at first. I didn't know Joe as well as I do now, obviously, but it was just, do I want to move back from being a head coach to an assistant coach, and how's that gonna affect the relationship that's beginning with Joe and I, or am I not gonna enjoy it because it's now not my program? How do I step in? How do I step out? But the transition, honestly, Joe made it very seamless. He understood that I've been in the program, that I've been around the rinks. I've coached in the same league. So I think having that for him has made him a better coach, because he knows that there's also somebody behind him that he can trust, and not have to worry about something coming for him, or me not trusting the process, as he'll say, or trusting the program to meet its full potential.
Yeah, and I love, this is a perfect segue. So thanks for the assist on that one. This is great. This is great, because I want to talk about the Etobicoke Dolphins program, because I think when we anyone who follows junior hockey, you're watching this program consistently be ranked one of, if not certainly recently, the
Sure.
top league, or the top
Yeah.
team in the league, right? When you think about that, and you think about the work that you and head coach Joe Bukovich have put into this program, what does it mean to you to not only see the success of this program, but also seeing these players move on to having really, really incredible careers at the collegiate level?
Yeah, it's everything, right? Like that. This is why I don't want to speak for Joe, but seeing the kids progress and being difference makers at the next level it's everything that we do. It's that's the reason we do it. We see that they're becoming better people, better hockey players. I think it's been unreal, I guess the success that we've had. And a lot of that goes to the work that's done behind the scenes in terms of pushing the program on social media. Nothing that we do is not unseen, because it's always out there with the people that are involved, whether it be Lori and Kenny on the media side. What they do is absolutely incredible. And if it weren't for them, we probably wouldn't be where we're at, right now. But we'd probably still be around it. But the things that they do for the players and the girls and the families of, they provide pictures and media things that they may never have had in their careers if they didn't have the opportunity with Lori and Kenny. So I think the success belongs to a lot of people, not just Joe and myself, and the coaches, but the families. They come, and with the free movement in female hockey, players can decide kind of where they do want to play. And everybody I've spoken to, and they always say, they come with they come with they come from a program where they might be able to do anything they want, or they come from being a superstar, and they come together with all superstars, and they have to find their spot too to be successful as a team. And I can't say enough about the players doing that on a consistent basis the 4 years I've been here, and finding their spot, and not caring who at the end of the day puts the puck in the net, but they're there for the program, and to create that, create the culture that we talk about. Because creating a culture is not just a one thing. It's every day. Like, you come to the rink, you're supportive of your teammates. You're not, like I said, you're not caring who puts the puck in the net. You're there because you want to play for the person beside you, and the family that's watching you. Because if you take care of that stuff, a lot of good things will happen for yourself, in the rink and outside of the rink.
Yeah, and I think one of the, I've been fortunate enough to be able to watch a few Dolphins games, and obviously connect with a number of the players. And one of the things that continually comes up, and it's obvious on the ice, it's obviously evident off the ice as well, but team culture with the Dolphins especially has been something that I've really noticed, and that's been a topic of conversation that's come up in my discussions with players as well. Um, when you think about team culture, how do you feel like, how do you help build a positive and inclusive culture within the Dolphins, especially when there are players that are coming, as you've mentioned, from different experiences, different backgrounds, different skill levels? How do you build that culture within the organization?
I think it starts with making with letting every player know how valuable they are to the team. It's not just, you might not be the one that scores 50 goals, but you might be the one out there blocking the shot to score to win the game, because we're up 3-2, or dying seconds, you blocked a shot. That block shot is just as valuable as the goal that was scored by, let's say, a person that scores 50 goals. I think as soon as a player feels valuable, to their team, I think that's where the culture buy-in and the team buy-in really starts. And it doesn't happen overnight. It certainly doesn't. It's a tough thing, and because you're not just having especially at the minor hockey level, you're not just having the individual players buy-in. You've got to have the parents buy-in and the families buy-in, because of the true cost of things. You're gone from Otto to Windsor every weekend. You know, and it's probably not your only child, so you're in and out sometimes. And but the amount of buy-in and how many parents step up to help the program. You see that at not just the golf tournament, but the Labor Day exhibition tournament. Families staying around all day to make sure that the teams are taken care of. If they have any questions, if that stuff doesn't happen, the on ice product probably, again, wouldn't be where it's at. The family buy-in starts, the kids buy-in, because we're only with the players an hour and a half each time, maybe an hour before the game, but they're with their families X amount of hours more than they are with us. And if the buy-in's being had at home and it's being talked about positively, it's only gonna, move to the rink and move to the players. So I think it ultimately starts with the families, and when you have conversations with the families, it's letting them know that that's how it is. It's, you can't just come, drop your kid off and never be seen again until, the end of the year, thanking the coach or saying that you're not coming back. So what it truly is a full team buy-in, from parents to coaches to players to off ice staff to everybody around it. And if it weren't for the families and players, there would be no on ice product. So you try to bring in the right people, and you talk to them, and just continuously push the culture of it, and push what we need to do to become where we're at today.
And so one of the questions that I always love to ask players is, what impact did family have on you? And so it's interesting now to kind of get the opposite side of it, where it's, you don't necessarily, yes, you're interacting with the families, but you're not obviously at the home with the players, right? So to hear you call that out, I think that's one of those other reasons why I love asking that question, because it isn't just about, showing up at the rink, scoring goals, making saves, blocking shots, all those sorts of things. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes. And a lot
100%.
of that foundation is built at home, right? You build that
Absolutely.
foundation at home, it translates to the ice. And I'm so thankful that you brought that up, because this is another perfect example of why it's important to be able to learn about players, their experiences and how supportive families been, because I always say that it's like it takes a village, right?
Absolutely.
It isn't easy financially, in terms of time, as you've mentioned, it's, time at home, like teaching
Yeah.
those great behaviors, but also literally driving to and from a rink, you
Yeah.
know, but instilling those great behaviors in those players and emphasizing that at the rink is kind of how the message that I'm taking away from this conversation.
100%. 100%. It starts and begins with the families. It couldn't happen without them. Like you said, with the drives to the rink, the drives home from the rink, even the monetary commitments that the families have, to have their kids play this sport. That's, and hopefully it doesn't go much further than what it is now, because it's it's probably moving out of a lot of people's ranges to be able to afford hockey. Unfortunately, just with the amount of monthly fees, where you know I was talking to my parents not too long ago about it, and they were, when I was playing AAA hockey for the city of Oshawa, it was $125 a month. Now we're up, and that included a lot of things, including any hotels um, that we would have had in away tournaments. Now it's 8 times that and a month, and it doesn't include a lot of things for a lot of teams, right? So um, it's not just hockey that's obviously that, but a lot of things have moved in that direction. But it is a sport that's obviously gained a lot of traction by a lot of people. As you can see, the amount of females that have, just on the female side, the amount of females that have started to play and grown in that time frame. But yeah, it's hopefully we're kind of at a peak of where it may, for the financial commitments are for the families.
Yeah, because that's absolutely a barrier to entry, and I know that I can attest to that, because that's one of the reasons why I become a fan of the sport off the ice, was
Yeah.
because I couldn't afford to play it on the ice. So I was also not very good, which didn't help. But I do want to talk about, we talk about the families, we talk about the impact that both being at home and at the rink have on these incredible, and I'm inevitably going to say incredible players, but they are truly incredible people. And I
Yeah.
want that to be highlighted here. And I think, when we look at their future, right? Especially with the Dolphins program and so many youth programs, you're preparing these players for their next step, their next stage in their career. And especially now, with the PWHL, knowing that there's actually a professional league that they can play in North America, best of the best. um, that changes maybe how these players perceive how they're going to continue their career. Typically, it was, you'd play to collegiate, and then you'd try out for the national team, hope to be able to make the national team. Maybe that's every 2 years, maybe that's every 4 years, whatever that kind of time frame looks like. But unless you want to play overseas, there weren't really a lot of opportunities for you. When you think about preparing these players for that next step, what goes into that prep, and ultimately, like, how are you preparing these incredible individuals for what could be and hopefully will be a long career?
Yeah, it's I'm thinking, obviously having the professional league is where everything needs to get to, and it's awesome to see preparing the kids. What we always talk about is being where your feet are. Not thinking too far ahead, but obviously we have to think as a coaching staff, where do these players need to be able to play at the next level, and not just go up and go and be an impact player at the next level. Because a lot of these players in the league at this level now, they could go play for any team, but would they make an impact? That's up to them, right? So as a coaching staff, that's where we need to give them every opportunity to become a better player, to play in all situations, so that they can go up and be an impact player, not just go score. Just don't be a goal scorer. Go be, what we talk about, 200-foot player. Go be a good defensive player. Go be a good teammate. If it's not your day, and at the next level, it's because the coaches, let's per se, the coaches' mortgages are on the line for every game that they coach. They're going to make the decisions that they feel are best for them to be able to win at the next level. Here, we've got to develop these players to be able to play in those systems at the next level. Our jobs aren't on the line for our everyday jobs, but if we're not preparing and providing these girls every opportunity to get better every time we're on the ice, then we're doing a complete disservice to the players. A lot of these kids learning may not finish until they're 24, 25, 26, and what they know for the world. And so what we do and how we do it, I think, is every time we're at the rink, we allow them to go be kids, to go be kids, to go play free, give them the opportunity to make mistakes. Hockey's such a fast game. It's going to be mistake laden every game. It's how do you rebound from that mistake, and are you learning from that mistake? And that's where you kind of got to give the kids a lot of leeway. Maybe not a lot of leeway, but the opportunity to repair that mistake, or go out next time, see that opportunity, and they make what we say is the right play. I think that's the true building of a player to be able to play at the next level. A lot of these players and a lot of past players have gone on to the next level, and they've experienced every side of it, where some players aren't playing a lot, and I've seen other players that that have gone through not just Etobicoke, but my past teams in Whitby that are killing it, because they were able to adjust and able to find where they fit properly. And you're not just going to a team full of players from Etobicoke, Ontario. You're going from a team full of players from all over the world for a lot of the whether it's NCAA or U Sport. These players come from all over, and the coach is going to, like I mentioned before, the coach is going to make the decisions that they feel is best to win that day. But at the next level, it's all about winning, and whether that's at U Sport, NCAA, national level, it's all about winning. And how do you fit into that winning formula? Are you strictly a first line and can't be depended on on the power on the penalty kill, or are you strictly a fourth line? Can you be moved up and down? Can you only play one side of the ice? Can you play all? Give these kids the opportunities now, when it's winning isn't everything, which I've learned from the time I started, where I thought it was, but the best thing that I can see now is if you give the kid the opportunity, they go out and succeed. I think that's winning. That's the winning part of it is, you give them the opportunity to go out and kill a penalty in the last minute, or go out and, when we're 6-on-5, we need a goal, and they go out and score that goal. Those are the things that, the kids are probably going to remember, not, not a Tuesday night game against Durham West when, something like that. But, those good opportunities that they gain by developing and being in certain situations, I think is the biggest tool as coaches that we can use to help these players at the next level.
And now, a word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by sports nutritionist Melissa Bufunos of MB Performance Nutrition. As a former competitive hockey player turned nutritionist, Melissa's mission is to help the next generation of hockey players optimize their diets and health so they can perform their best both on and off the ice. Ready to dominate on the ice? Melissa's new course, The Hockey Nutrition Blueprint, is available now. If you're serious about learning how nutrition can impact performance and building actionable nutrition strategies based on your unique needs as an elite hockey player, learn more and sign up at melissabufunos.com/course. That's MELISSABOUFOUNOS.com/course, and make sure to use code Rinkside to save $50 off the regular price. Thank you to Melissa Bufunos for sponsoring this episode. And now, back to the show. I think the opportunity to be able to connect with a coach is a really unique opportunity to be able to kind of gain an inside perspective as to, the mindset of a coach, right? So fortunately enough, I've had the opportunity to speak with a number of players, and they obviously have that side of things, and they've certainly been impacted by their previous coaches and obviously current coaches as well. One of the things that I've always wanted to know from a coach's perspective is, how do you balance pushing your players, really challenging them and helping them to see that they think they're giving 100%, but really they're giving 60%. And you can get that extra 40% out of them by pushing them, but also balance that with the fact that you also want them to still enjoy playing hockey. How do you find, or how do you navigate that balance?
It's incredibly tough, and it's without, there's mistakes bound to happen when you're doing that, because you're going to read a player the wrong way a certain day. Maybe they've had a bad day, but they're not showing it, and you say a word and it triggers something. There's a lot of things that go into trying to balance that in a practice, in a game. You try to know your players as soon as you can, as best as you can, but without knowing, for me, I don't get to know on the assistant coach side. And so another difference between assistant coach, head coach, I think you really learn the families as a head coach, because you get those, can I have a conversation with you? Can we have a call? Can we have, as an assistant coach, you kind of get the back end of things from the head coach. I just had a call with, with this family or that family, or this player and that player. So learning, so as assistant coach, I think you really got to learn the kids on a personal level when you're speaking to them at each game or each practice, because you're not going to get that one-on-one call, or that one-on-one, phone call, or with a family, or what's so. I think the one, not even just every time you have the opportunity to check in to see how their day is going, or speak with them and just kind of truly understand. But the balance is truly tough. There's I don't know if I don't think I'm very good at it, but I think Joe is very good at it in terms of knowing where his players are that day, and that's kind of what I'm continuing to learn from him.
Yeah, and I love that relationship that the two of you have, as you've mentioned, being a part of this program for as long as you have been. The relationship that the two of you have is, I think, really important. Obviously, when you think about a coaching staff, that's how you're going to achieve the success. Is you have to be a united front, and sure, you're going to have difference of opinions, and I think that's what brings that's what helps a great leadership team, right? And when we think about those leadership team, or those leadership qualities rather, um, when you so obviously you're working on those things as a coaching staff, but how do you instill those leadership qualities in the players on this team? And and that applies to both on and off the ice, because I think, especially, and I'm unafraid to say I'm a little bit biased when it comes to the Dolphins, but I've experienced firsthand how this team wants to connect with the community, wants to, they're not afraid to walk up to you and shake your hand and say, hey, I'm so and so. It's great to meet you, and just to be and being a part of the golf charity event as well. That was a prime example of they're not afraid to do that. But that goes for off the ice, and I think that's so important. But how do you, as a leadership team, as a coaching staff, support those leadership qualities, or instill those leadership qualities in the players beyond just the ones who wear letters?
For sure. I think, and I say it all the time. I think everybody wants to be a leader until they are a leader. Everybody wants to have that C, or everybody wants to have that A on their jersey, but it's tough being them a lot of the times. You mentioned the tough, like, kids can walk up, but having the tough conversations with the teammate that they heard something, or they don't like what they're seeing, or they feel that they're being that the person's not giving 100% that day, or 100% of what they have. Working with kids, giving them the opportunities, them coming up to us and asking what we would do. There's some really really good young females that will probably do very good things, that don't have letters on our team, going forward. And just because you don't have a letter doesn't mean you can't be a leader. Anybody can be a leader, but it's how you go about it. Is it for yourself, or is it for your teammates that you're stepping up and saying something? Um, you know, I would give, there's not too many. I wouldn't remember too many captains, honestly, in the time. But McKenna Van Gelder, who's now at Cornell, and then Brooke McQuigg, who likely be with Minnesota this year. Those are probably two of my best captains that I've come through. One, they weren't afraid to say something, or weren't afraid to ask a teammate to do something, because you knew that they weren't afraid to go out and do it themselves. And I think that's the best type of person, best type of maybe attribute or character that you would have, to be a leader. If you're asking someone to do something that you're not willing to do, what does that really show? But when the person goes out and does it themselves, I think that's a true leader. And I couldn't speak more highly of those two. Thinking back in my past, and now even just the current leadership core, they just they, they're easy to get along with. They're easy to speak to, and as you mentioned, talking, coming up to shaking hands, it's that stuff is easy. It's behind the scenes that you can really see what a true character player is. And just going back to McKenna and Brooke, those were two of my favorites.
Yeah, and I will say I had the opportunity to speak with Rachel McQuigg, and I can tell you confidently that those qualities run in the family.
100%.
Because even though they play different positions, those leadership qualities, those just personable qualities, I think is a infectious quality that both of them have. So I love that you shouted her out, because I think she's a name that Brooke is definitely a name that everyone should be paying close attention to, because she's going to make a huge impact on the PWHL. So I love that. But I do also want to give a shout out to, again, the Dolphins, and just me personally experiencing some of these opportunities with the team, and just how outgoing they are. I know that it is easy to like you said, it's easy to walk up to someone and say hi, but
Yep.
to engage in conversation, to go out of their way, I'll give a special shout out to Rachel Piggott, who spent an entire afternoon with me in the blazing sun during
Yeah.
the golf tournament, the
Yep.
charity event. We had a great conversation, and she
Yep.
didn't have to do that. She just, this was, and I remember still, every time a golf cart would come up, she'd be the first one to stand up and make that first step towards um towards the whomever it was in the golf cart. And
Yep.
I asked her afterwards, and I was like, like, it's great, but like, essentially, why? Like, you don't have to get up and go to them every time. She's
Yeah.
like, oh, like, this is important for us to be able to connect with the community. We don't want
Yep.
them coming to us. We want to be going to them. So I
Yep.
think that's why I really wanted to ask this question, was because it's ingrained in this team that it is more than just what you do on the ice, and it's almost, I would say, arguably more important what you do off the ice and away from the ice and away from what you're most comfortable with, which is scoring goals, making
Yeah.
saves, whatever. It's about the
100%.
community. And
Absolutely.
yes,
Absolutely.
so a special shout out to Piggott, who had to deal with me for 6 hours one day. So
Another good kid. Another good
yeah,
kid.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Doing really well in the nationals at this point, so following along her
So far.
career is going to be great.
Yep.
Um, I want to ask you one last question before we get to the tradition on this show, which is a fun game to wrap things up, a little bit of a rapid fire kind of thing. Um, we've touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to know, for you personally, when you see the success of these players, the success, and it can be current on the team, this could be collegiate, this could be wherever, as you mentioned now, based on prior experiences in the coaching level, in the PWHL. Um, what does it mean to you to see, these players just like they're doing what they love and they're really good at it, and they're evolving, as we've mentioned a lot of the time, also as a person. What does that mean to you personally?
Everything. I it's so fun to, you don't look at, two or three teams in the NCAA, because, you've coached so many different players, but, you go check out Queens to Laurier to, Ontario Tech. Every game, let's say, how did this player do? How did that player do? So, you're looking at, 15, 20, 30 games every weekend to just see how your players, you call them your players because you've coached them, and you've seen them, you've been with them, and you've helped them move them to that next level. And it's honestly everything. Like, you don't, for me, I've bought, TV channels to watch, two players in an NCAA game. Like, that's everything for us. My wife played the game. Her family grew up in a hockey playing family. It really is the world to us. And, every time that we come to the rink, whether it's, my little one, that's all the players ask about. And that just goes back again to see how good these kids actually are, that, they don't just care about themselves. They don't, they're not so much worried about what's going on in their life right now. They see, a 2-year-old Quinn walk into the rink, and that's, how's Quinn, how's this, how's, that's really what the world is to me. And I'm doing it to hopefully allow my kid to have the experiences that these ones have had, and to show them that there is experiences. And, players like McQuiggs, who, with Brooke now there, Rachel, who had the opportunity to play for Ottawa last year. Um, you know, I want my kid to see those opportunities, and now it's full blown, and it's awesome. Um, I I wouldn't change anything that we've done for the world.
I want to say that I know what it's meant to be able to connect with a number of players through this podcast, or in live with the Dolphins, for example. Um, and I know, like, I'm following their career, and I'm super excited every time I see them score a goal. Like, I'll post, like, I want to celebrate their successes. but I can only imagine, based on how I feel, how much more that must feel for you, knowing that you were, and you're, I know you're already gonna kind of dismiss this, but you had an impact on their career. And I can only imagine how much more of an impact, and how much more there's like a sense of pride. There must be a
Yeah,
sense of pride seeing them
so
be
much,
successful.
so much. I mean, just as a personal story, I can remember, Clarkson was playing Minnesota last year in a quarterfinal. It went to triple overtime. Me and my wife were at the Leaf game, and we bought the ESPN Plus game to watch that game because Brooke and Kurt were on the team, still watching, still playing, and that's what I love to see. I would do that for if another team, I do that for everybody if we could.
Yeah, and that's what this is about, right? So I love that passion, and so we're gonna wrap up that segment of the show. We're going to move on to the skill testing questions. So,
Okay.
and I always say that I'm glad I'm on this side of it because I hate taking tests. But what we'll do is these are going to be some sort of more rapid fire questions at you, just to kind of further get to know the one and only Blake Pryor, kind of get your perspective on some things, just have a little bit of fun. Are you ready to take the test?
Awesome. Let's go.
Okay, perfect. What does, and I love being able to chat with the coach because it's a different perspective. What does a typical day look like for you as an assistant coach? So a typical day, let's do game day.
Typical game day. It depends really. In the morning, I wake up. I'll wake up with the little one, and then depending on what time the game is, we'll see. We'll see where it is. Are they coming with us, or are they coming with me? Are they not coming with me? If it's just myself, I'll get ready. I'll try to, I'll head to Joe's. Joe usually drives the rest of the way. I drive from Oshawa to Pickering, and then Joe will drive the rest of the way, depending on where the game is for the most part. So it honestly depends on what type of night and what type of morning it's been with the little one, on what the true morning is. But we'll have breakfast. I'll get ready, and I'll usually head out the door between 9:30 and 10:30, depending on what time the game is that day.
Okay, love it. If you had to describe your coaching style in, I'm gonna say just 3 words, but I feel like I would hate to have to summarize it up in 3 words, but we'll say as few words as possible. How would you describe your coaching style?
Um, I'd say passionate, communicative, and probably solution oriented. Just in terms of trying to create or trying to show the best solution of that situation that the player might have been in. Passionate, you'll hear me at times, and I get into it for sure, depending on the situation. Again, bad call, what's going on in the day, and then just trying to be really being able to communicate with the players, because if I'm holding something in, maybe they're holding something in, and that's not, just have the talk. Let's make sure everyone's on the same page, and then we can all work it out together.
Okay, love it. I want to know as well, especially when it comes to women's hockey, what advice would you give someone who wants to get into coaching? And what do you wish you had known about coaching women's hockey before you started?
I'd say jump all in. Don't, if I'm going to give any advice, jump all in, because the player, if you've never watched it, the players are better than you think they are. And if you're not all in, you're doing a disservice to the players. So anything that you do from any level, jump in with everything that you can, and I say get 1% better every day. So you're gonna have to get 1% better at reading books, reaching out to other coaches, asking for, watching video, doing things on your own that you might not think you should be doing, but if you're going to jump all in, that's how you do it. Something I wish I knew. I think I mentioned it earlier. I think I coached early on to win, and win at all costs, not and not thinking of the development of players. So it was, now that the players are so good and so skilled, and in a way, you know, the top teams are so much deeper than everybody. I would say know that winning isn't everything, and allow the kids to develop, because if you're not, again, I'll go back to it, you're providing a disservice if you're not letting the who you might think is the 15th player on the team, develop, who might end up becoming the best player on the team in 2 or 3 years, because now they're with a different program and they're developing and whatnot. So if you're not giving that player or all those players the opportunity to develop and get better, there's you're not doing it properly.
Okay, that's great. And I have one final question for you. And this is a question I ask every player, and I think it's just as important to ask you. Are you ready for the biggest question I've asked you thus far?
I think so. I think
Okay,
so.
perfect. So my biggest question as a coach, it's game day. What is your go-to pregame meal?
If I'm driving with the family, it's a McDonald's breakfast. Get a
Nice.
sausage McMuffin, large coffee, couple hash browns. The little one will have a hash brown to herself. That'll give about 45 minutes of peace. And then if I'm not with them, it's probably just a coffee. I'm not a huge eater in the mornings, but after game time, that's wings and beer for sure.
Wings and beer, I love it.
Yeah.
Nice way to wrap up what would inevitably be just another win for the Etobicoke Dolphins. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's been a lot of those. But some losses that we hopefully learn from as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Blake, I can't thank you enough as we wrap up today for taking the time out of the busy schedule that you have and the success of the program. I'm not afraid to say how much I am truly passionate about the stories coming out of Etobicoke. It's an incredible program. You're a big part of that. And to have the opportunity to chat with you, to have met you in person, it's something that means a lot to me, and everything this program has helped to support me with has meant a lot. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time, hopping on the podcast, making this happen. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's been an honor. And without people like you, the game doesn't get better. So thank you for what you do.
I appreciate that. And there you have it, folks. For Blake Pryor, I'm Chris Sinclair, and this has been Rinkside Rundown. Cheers.